the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, through the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneur's Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. You know who I am. I'm Seth. I have the privilege of having a friend of mine on the program. He is Kevin Chemidlin of the Philly Who podcast, of Grow the Show, of the accelorator that is Grow the Show, and he does a podcast of this by the same name. He helps podcasters, coaches podcasters on how to be better at their craft. He also runs a production company, Q9.fm, where he helps you do it. So like if you don't want to do it yourself, you go to Kevin and say, Kevin, help me out here, buddy. Help me out here. So Kevin, how's it going, buddy? I gotta switch the camera over to you. How's it going, buddy?
It's great. I'm pumped to be here. Thank you so much.
This is so much fun. So, Kevin, how did this whole journey get started? I kind of alluded to the fact that it was Philly Who, but how did it get started? Like, why podcasting?
Yeah. So like most podcasters, it started for me as being a listener. So I used to live in Philadelphia. I'm from the Philadelphia area. And I used to be a software developer at a big health insurance company. And one morning, I was on my way to work on the L in the subway underneath, in the bowels of Philadelphia. And I was listening to a podcast while I waited, for my train to take me to work. And I was listening to a show. It was The Buzz at the time. It's called How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Oh, he's the impetus. Wow.
Oh, yes. And the episode that I was listening to was about Warby Parker, which is an eyeglass company. Now, at the time, I didn't know that Warby Parker was founded at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. So I'm hearing this story of this cool company and how these scrappy entrepreneurs made this thing from scratch. And I was so excited by the fact that it was literally it happened above where I was listening to the story because I was in the subway, right? It was just literally right above me. And
that's wild.
It was so exciting. And I was like, man, I'd love to hear more Philadelphia stories like this.
Yeah. A lot of come out of Philadelphia. A lot of things have come out of Philadelphia that people don't know. Like everyone's like, it's New York, it's New York, it's New York. No, a lot of things. And if you listen to Philly Who, which it's still out there, right?
So Philly Who, the episodes are still out there. I haven't made episodes since about 2021, but yeah, they're still there.
They're still there. Go back and listen because that's a good thing about Philly Who is that they're evergreen.
That's right. Yeah.
And that you go back and you interviewed council members, you interviewed hip hop artists, you interviewed the founders, like the Who of Philadelphia, hence the name.
Exactly.
And so you quit your job at the big health insurance company, and you're like, I'm gonna do this full time. And then it was going well. It's going well, and then I've heard this story a few times, and then all of a sudden it stopped growing, which is kind of like, oh no, what? So tell us a little bit about that, because that's your entrepreneurial journey. You kind of jumped into it.
Yeah,
it's going well, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, savings is not as good as it used to be now.
No.
I'm using it, and now the podcast is not growing.
Exactly. That's what happened. So the show immediately got some buzz and it got some attention, which was awesome. And I was like, all right, I've made it. This is it. This is going to be my thing. Screw you. Take your job. You know what I mean? And so I left the job. No, it was very nice. It was very polite. Everybody was supportive. They were confused, but they were supportive.
What is this thing?
Yeah. And they're like, you're leaving your 6-figure software job at 26 to be a podcaster.
Oh, because you're a millennial. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, I was, and life was hunky-dory for 3 months where I was living off my savings, and I got to just, make a podcast all day. But pretty quickly, the show stopped growing, so it had gotten past the launch buzz where the numbers weren't going up anymore, and also I had no idea how to make any money. So I was in a position where I was like, uh-oh, kind of left the job, and I considered going back. Because things got pretty dark for a minute where I started to actually go into debt because I was so stubborn about the fact that I didn't want to go back to corporate world.
Yeah.
And so with my back against the wall, I had to learn business and
how
to make money, how to monetize the show. Yeah.
That's wild. And so you figured it out because you've made it into a program to help others figure it out. You give a lot of it away on the Grow the Show podcast. you're still doing the podcast, right? Like it's not as often, but I mean, I know when it first started, it was like every week, and I'm tuning in every week, taking and like I don't take notes on most podcasts, but Grow the Show podcast, you got to take notes. And I'm walking the dog, I go back and re-listen because I'm like, Kev's on to something here. Even even if he's not on to something, he's full of it. At least it sounds good. I'm going to take notes and try it. So.
And then when you try it, you find out it works, right? Like
it works.
Like it actually works.
Yeah, and it's not and but that's the thing. Like with me with SEO, it's not rocket science. It really isn't.
You just got.
It's just commitment to doing it.
That's right. Yeah, and so the show still exists. I still publish. For the past like 2 months, I've been republishing episodes. And this week we haven't published one because I have a fresh batch of content coming. So the thing about podcasting is it's a long-term thing, and I very much believe take a break when you need it. And so that's what I have done for the past couple months. And you can do that you can republish, you can go on a break. Like a lot of podcasters are afraid to stop, which you of course need to be consistent, but it's a long-term game. So, if you need a break, take a break.
You don't want to burn out because then you have, because isn't it like 80 or 70 or 80% of podcasts don't get past 30 episodes because they just die out?
Vast majority. That's right. Yeah, because it's a grind.
It is a grind. It's fun until it's not. And then when it's not, it really isn't. I've been doing it since 2010.
Yeah.
In some way or another, some podcast. And they've ended because it's been like, I need a break.
Yeah.
And then they come back when I'm refreshed. So, and then sometimes you got to start all over again. So.
Yeah, and what I found is that like a lot of times I'll delay taking the break. I'll push it off as long as I can. Just keep going, be consistent. And then eventually I'll be like, okay, I need to take a moment. I need to take some time because, just the spark, the passion, just it really, really becomes a grind and I start to lose the joy in it. Even the podcast guy loses the joy in podcasting.
I know.
And what I found is that I take a break and usually give it 2 weeks, and within 2 weeks I'm like pumped. I'm having new ideas again. I'm excited to get back to it. So that's generally what I found is that I take one break a year, and that's kind of the rhythm that works for me.
That's it. And it's kind of knowing yourself and knowing what works for you is not always going to be what works for someone else. And that's what, right. And you've also talked about that. Like this stuff works for you and it's worked for other people, but like you might have to adjust it a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like be going different like locations and stuff and talking about stuff, but that's a grind too. The promotion I feel like is more like for me. Clearly, talking is not really at the grind. It's the post production. It's this. It's that. It's all that good stuff. So
yeah, it is. You gotta manage it.
Yeah, it's all about management and mental health, that kind of thing. So what is it, since you did jump like head first, like I kind of did in 2008, but you jumped in like 2018. Head first in the podcasting world, the entrepreneurial world. What is the best thing in your mind about being an entrepreneur?
Oh man, what is the best thing? So, to me, I just like the freedom to be creative and make my own decisions. That's what I like above everything else. And there's even like you even have to chase that within entrepreneurship itself, because like my first venture after I launched Philly Who, I launched a production agency, Q9 FM.
Yes. And
that agency, we don't have any, it's pretty much, I just kind of let it go defunct, if you will. So our last contract expired and then I kind of let it go. And what I found was basically that was big media companies would hire me and my team to help them with their show, whether through production or, consulting or whatever. And even then I was like, I hated it because like, doing other people's stuff and saying, hey, here's what I think you should do. And they're like, that's a cool idea,
listen.
But no, you do this instead. And you're like, okay. And then you do that and it doesn't work. And they're like, why doesn't this work? What are we paying you for? So it's just this whole thing. So for me, what I value is the autonomy, is the freedom, to just be creative, follow my intuition, follow my logic, whatever it is. And to me, that's what like entrepreneurship is. I'm sure we've covered it tons of times on this show. It is freaking hard. There's ups and downs. But to me, that's what makes it all worth it.
I love it. And then what keeps you up at night? What's the worst thing about being an entrepreneur? The flip side.
Well, I think there are some nights when I think back to the days in the corporate world where, as an entrepreneur, you just have all the responsibility. it all comes back to you. Even if you have a large team of people to take care of stuff, it's still like, yes, it's their responsibility, but it still rolls up to you, right? Your
It
client
does. The buck
results,
stops with you. Yeah.
your team results, your company's results. So there's definitely nights when I think back to my days as a software developer where I just showed up, did my job, got paid the same no matter what.
Yeah.
It's way easier, but it's frickin' safe. And so, yeah, you trade that safety for risk, for not safety, for having to deal with things. And, you know, while overall you're free, you're also in many ways less free because, you know, you have to, you know, make sure this business survives and thrives so that it can keep providing you that freedom. So it's just a big game of trade-offs. So what's funny is the thing that I love about it is also the thing that keeps me up at night, right?
You can't escape it, and it's just, and also you kind of go back to the whole idea of mental health. You take a year. You don't take a year. You take a break a year for a few weeks to just kind of recenter yourself, understand, you know, then come back with a bunch of ideas. Sometimes things might pivot and stuff like that, but you know, knowing that. And also, you probably do your books during that time too, like catch up on everything else that you.
Well, yeah, it was a break from the podcast, not from.
Not from the business.
Worked more over the past 2 months than the previous. So.
I know. It's like you take a break from the production, and it's like, okay, oh my God, I have all this paperwork to do.
That's right, exactly.
And people don't realize that, but you know, with entrepreneurship, especially like, you know, people who are doing it by themselves, or they, you know, you have a team and stuff like that, but like. It's still, you have to check that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
That's right.
So even if you don't like to do the bookkeeping, you still got to check stuff.
Got to make sure it gets done.
Absolutely. So what is the most important thing to carry with you all the time? Now, it can be physical, metaphysical, deep, surfacey, whatever you want to do.
What is the most important thing to carry with you all the time? Well, do you ask this question a lot?
These are the same 3 questions every single time.
Yeah. Does everybody say gratitude?
No.
Wow. That was the first thing that came to mind, but I was like, that's probably, I'm sure everybody says that.
A lot of people use phone. I'm always shocked. Phone. And then they get deep on why it's the phone, but, you know, it's not always like, you know. But gratitude, how so? Yeah.
Like gratitude, or I guess perspective. Because... you know, I really strongly believe that the suffering just comes from unmet expectations.
Yeah.
That's it. So anytime we are upset, it's because we are expecting something and didn't get what we were expecting. And there's only one part of that equation that we can actually control, which is not what we get, but what we expect.
Yeah.
So that's why for me, like, it came up as gratitude, to where it's just a resetting of expectations, right? To when I'm in a moment where I'm like, we didn't get enough clients this month, or I don't want to work tomorrow, or whatever it might be. Like, I'm just like, you know, I look around and I'm like, actually, this is all pretty freaking great. So, you know, let me just try to get some space away from the initial reaction to whatever is going on in my life, and just be grateful for what I have.
You're not sitting at that desk as a code monkey anymore. You're doing your own thing.
No, I'm sitting at the desk as a podcast monkey now, but
it's different, but it's also on your terms.
It's on my terms,
and that's the key. So, Kev, where is the best place for people to find you online? Like, where's your watering hole online?
So the watering hole is the Grow the Show Facebook group. So if you literally just go on Facebook and say Grow the Show for Podcasters, you can meet us there. Also, you can message me on Twitter or Instagram. That's where I see most of the messages. And so I'm at Kevin Chemidlin, although I should probably be at Grow the Show. It's easier to remember.
I can never spell your last name.
Yeah, sometimes I can't either, so I don't blame you.
I love it, yeah. That's great. And then so growtheshow.com is also the website.
That's
it's
right.
the podcast. Go download it, listen to even honestly the back catalog is incredible. Sit down with a drink. It could be alcoholic, it could not be alcoholic, whatever you want to do. No judgment here. And listen with a pen and paper or your remarkable tablet and take notes. Like, Kevin knows what he's talking about because, you know what, he's done it. It's not like, oh, he's read some books. He's like, oh, I can reteach this. No, he's actually like, wait, this works? Oh, I'm going to tell people about this. And yeah, you run your own academy. You coach people. You'll do all that. But, you know, you've even said in the podcast, you're like, I don't have a problem sharing this out with people. People should know this stuff.
Yeah.
And then if you
Well,
need more help and need more guidance, I'm here to help you.
exactly. I'm a big believer that, information is, I don't own the information.
Mhm.
It's, I own my time and my attention and my service. Like
Yeah.
I charge for. But as
Yeah,
far
they
as the
should.
information goes, let's just get it out there to as many people as possible, because if there's someone out there who hears it and they implement it and they have success, heck yeah, that's awesome. That's what
It's
we're here
also
to
a
do.
referral in a way because they're like, then someone else says, well, how did you learn how to do this? Like, well, Kev has this show called Grow the Show. He also has a net, he also has he coaches people on this. And then that person who might not have converted turns in the next person who he tells might convert.
It's true.
It's all trickle down.
That's the beauty of it, is that not only can I take the altruistic view and say, like, I really want this information to reach as many people as possible and not gatekeep it and not put it behind a paywall, but
Hmm.
also it often leads to more business anyway,
It
because people
does.
are so gracious, and the law of reciprocity.
It's amazing. And on that note, thank you so much for being on the program, Kev. I'm so glad we've been talking about getting you on here, and also it just kind of got lost in the weeds. So thank you for reaching out again.
Absolutely,
I'm
man.
thrilled to have you on. It's like the Podfather here. Actually, that's trademarked. There's one already called the Podfather
Yeah,
out
that's
there.
not me.
That's not you,
I'll
but
take the compliment, though.
but you're like one of the consigliaries. You
Yeah,
know what you're
yeah,
talking about, and that's the case. So, and we'll see everyone next time. That was a great show. If you're enjoying Entrepreneur's Enigma, please review us in the podcast directory of your choice. Every review helps other podcast listeners find our show. If you're looking for other podcasts in the marketing space, look no further than the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.